Hello everyone, this is part 3 and the final part, and I'm going to move over to the war powers part, but I'm just going to finish up these few little paragraphs or sentences here, and then I'm moving on. I'm not going to take the whole video on this, but it says here, this is very troubling, Collins said. It appears to me that we lost an opportunity to secure some very valuable intelligence information, and that the process that Director Blair described should have been implemented in this case. And I think it's very troubling that it was not, and that the 3 key intelligence officials were not asked their opinion. I'm talking about not only was the Hague, but also Homeland Security, the National Counterterrorism Center said they were not consulted. And it's kind of crazy because what happened? They got all the intelligence that they needed with the FBI. And this guy's going to get an actual, it's going to be the first terrorist, quote, terrorist, because I think he's a patsy. But, yeah, he may be a terrorist, but he's a type of patsy terrorist. He's an Al-Qaeda. And what does Al-Qaeda mean? It means that you're on CIA payroll. So what I'm getting at here is that they're fighting this big time. The establishment, or the powers that be, the people that represent that, which are the fascist neocons, Republicans, or you got the Democrats, it's a delusion of the two-party system, and then you got Joe Lieberman, who sits outside of that phony two-party system to give the illusion like there's separation, when then really they have the same goal, which is to support the military-industrial complex. You have Mr. Independent Joe Lieberman siding with the fascist Republicans, and because it makes them look bad, because they got the information that they needed. The guy already, told them everything, and so it kind of makes it seem like all these terrorism apparatuses are kind of useless. And so if he goes to a federal court, he may actually he may actually get let go on grounds that he was drugged up, and that other circumstantial evidence will come out, like the sharp-dressed man that escorted him because he didn't have a passport to get on the plane, and they overlooked his visa. All the intelligence, all these intelligence agencies that are, quote, that should have been called in, right? They failed. This guy got on the plane and did this, right? And so I know it was in Denmark and that, but still, they were warned. The father warned intelligence agencies, the CIA and them. They already knew about it. The visa, they knew about that. They said, "Oh, we messed up on that." And so, what I think is that in one aspect, was that they got the information right off the bat from him, and that he's going to go and through civil court, and so he may actually speak out, unlike his counterparts that are over in Guantanamo Bay, who it's on record have been come out while they go into the courts and they're like, "Hey, I've been set up. They just tortured me to say this, to confess, and this is what they do." And so if you go through that military tribunal system, you're going to admit to it, because they're going to basically tell you, look, if you want to live, you're going to confess, and you're going to have life in jail, and that's the best it's going to be for you. All right? So it's a lot going on here. And then remember, like I'm saying, this is going to be turned inwards towards us, towards domestic people, towards citizens, when the economy gets really bad and it collapses, or it gets to the point to where everything's bad, inflation's high, and jobs are high. People are going to start rioting, or you're going to start demanding something, and not really demanding something, but the police state grid is set up for this. It's all a culmination building up to this, what's going to be happening in the United States. So they've been preparing for this, and this is one part of that police state grid, and they want to make sure that everybody's on board, that, oh, when you get this, you come to us, you come to Homeland Security, you come to the high value interrogation, group. They want to make sure that everybody's on board. And I think that he may have actually somehow either slipped purposely or accidentally. I'm not really sure why he would go accidentally, or purposely, why they would just not go to these other agencies and just declare it, in civilian court, federal court. But I don't think that they like that he could actually go to court and say and try to have a case defended, have a good defense, especially when his father's a very wealthy a man, so he may have a chance of getting off, and he may say that he was set up and he's a patsy. So they're trying to cover their ass, I think, on this, and this is why I think this is so important. And it says up here, the chief U.S. immigration investigator in Detroit said Wednesday he had no regrets over how Abdul Muttalib was handled at the airport by his agency and the FBI. Brian Moskowitz, special agent in charge with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, said it was critical that agents immediately speak to Abdul Muttalib to determine whether there were other people on the planes planning to do the same. It was the right thing to do given our training and the events on the ground. Given the facts, I would do it again, Moskowitz told the AP. He declined to close any details about what Abdul Muttalib said. In a separate hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Mueller said Abdul Muttalib made statements to FBI agents before being given his Miranda rights. And that's what I was saying. The decision to arrest him was appropriate, Mueller said, based on ongoing, very fluid situation that demanded speedy actions. Sessions argued that Sessions argued that the suspect should have been declared an enemy combatant or an unlawful combatant. That's what they're saying, which is not a prisoner of war, which meant that he would have had none of the trials, speedy, due process, all those good things that we represent here in this country. Because once you do that, what happens? Then on the flip side, and you got U.S. soldiers having their heads cut off. You know what I'm saying? So the door swings both ways here, people. I would like to think that this was a real terrorist, and I would like to think that all these apparatuses and agencies and whatnot are set up to help keep us safe. But I know what is really going on, and I can see the bigger picture, and I can see that this could be used against us in the future. And then I also think about all the poor soldiers and Marines that are over there. They're going to be, if they are captured, they're not going to be treated like prisoners of war. They're going to be treated like enemy combatants, just as much as all the Middle Eastern people that are trying to defend their sovereignty against U.S. and foreign occupation. They're called terrorists, and but inside their country they would be considered domestic terrorists because they're trying to fight and maintain their current government. And we're trying to force a democracy and a constitution on them. So that's kind of where I stand on that. And when we go to this 2001 presidential military order, it says the length of time which a detention of such individuals can continue before being tried by a military tribunal is not specified in the military order. The military order uses the term detainees to describe the individuals detained under the military order. The U.S. administration chooses to describe the detainees held under the military order as, quote, illegal enemy combatants. Because remember, prisoners of war still get treated humanely, supposedly, and they still get the right to a trial by a jury. With the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, some lawyers in the Justice Department Office of Legal Counsel and the White House counsel Alberto Gonzales, which we all know is a piece of crap, advised President Bush, the Attorney General at the time, advised President Bush that he did not have to comply with the Geneva Conventions, there we go, in handling detainees in the war on terrorism. This applied not only to members of Al-Qaeda, or Al-Qaeda, remember, but the entire Taliban, which, of course, was co-opted in the 80s by U.S. intelligence because they argued Afghanistan was a failed state. And this is the important part. Despite opposition from the U.S. State Department, which warned against ignoring the Geneva Conventions, the Bush administration thenceforth began holding such individuals captured in Afghanistan under the military order and not under the usual conditions of prisoners of war. So this is my point. If intelligence agencies allow this to happen, allow this quote right here, mistake to happen, what do they get out of it? What's the problem, reaction, solution? They're pushing for legislation that will require civilian authorities to consult with intelligence leaders when taking an accused terrorist into custody. It's part of the apparatus, people. So in the future, people like me can be considered terrorists. We will not get a trial. We